I'm Barry Tramel, and I agree with Bob Stoops, who says the status quo of conference alignment does not have to remain.
I'm Jenni Carlson, and from the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching the press row. And Bob Stoops, Oklahoma football coach, said that the Big 12 might change. Maybe we'll see a different Big 12. I'm not so sure fans liked to hear that he thought conference realignment was okay.
Most fans pretty fired up about keeping it the way it is. A lot of people don't like change. A lot of people didn't like the formation of the Big 12 15 years ago. But you know what? It worked out great for the schools in the Big 12. Hard to imagine a landscape without the Big 12. But Bob Stoops says he has no idea what it will look like, but whether that means the Sooners and others leaving the Big 12 or Missouri, Nebraska leaving, others coming in, contraction, expansion, whatever the case, Bob seemed okay with the idea of change, and I think that's a good line of thinking. College athletics are not prone to stay in the same format. About every 10 or 15 years, we have realignment. We have conferences expand. We have teams move around. It's actually changed already this decade with the expansion of the ACC and the reconfiguration of the Big East. I don't think it's a bad thing for Oklahoma and Oklahoma State to keep an eye out on what can be done if something happens, or for OU and OSU to even lead a proactive approach and maybe think of a new type of league.
Well, I think the big, you're right what you say about people don't like change, and I think it's the, if the change ends up being more attractive, I think people would be willing to part ways with some of those Big 12 teams. But right now, the uncertainty of what would happen if what if Missouri would jump to the Big 10, which would then be, the Big 17 or something ridiculous? I mean, that sort of not knowing if teams are leaving, what you get in return, that's the biggest thing in my mind, Barry. I think people look around and they want to know if we're going to lose a decent school that brings something to the table, what are you going to get in return? Are you going to go and have to settle for somebody, or are you actually going to get a school that can bring something to the table? I think just not knowing, the idea of maybe some different schools being in the mix, I don't know if people are necessarily against that, but I do think that they're against not knowing, are they going to be better or equal to what we currently have?
Well, I think a key for OU and OSU is to be proactive. Don't sit back and wait for the Big 10 and Missouri to decide whether to get married. Yeah. Don't wait and see if Nebraska's leaving. Don't wait and see what Texas is thinking. Get down there and get in a war room with DeLoss Dodds at Texas and say, hey, listen, DeLoss, let's get something done together. Let's form a new league. Let's join another league. Let's join another league. Let's go get these teams to fortify the Big 12. Be proactive. That's what I would like to see out of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
And frankly, Barry, there are some teams that I wouldn't mind seeing go away from the Big 12. I think, Iowa State's pretty far flung, and they probably somewhat belong maybe in the Big 10. I don't know if the Big 10 would take them. That really hasn't been talked about. Missouri, I wouldn't like to see Missouri go because I think they've got some traditional rivals in the Big 12. But Colorado's one that always has kind of felt out of place. Their fans don't travel as well. I could definitely see them maybe being a team that you could replace. But I think just not knowing, is it going to be a Pac-10 type of relationship? That's been talked about. What would that do to travel? I mean, obviously it would open up some great doors of some new rivalries, but you're not only talking about travel for football, but you're talking about travel for all sports. And I think that's another side issue that's really going to come to bear is if they do a different alignment, what does that mean for every sport? Because you're not just traveling football, you're not just traveling men's basketball, you're traveling tennis and you're traveling track and every sport on the docket. So I think those are some real issues that the ADs and the school presidents are going to have to wrestle with. Hey, stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.